How many of the items you own have the tag Made in China? How many of the items that you own have the tag Made in the United States of America? Why might this be a problem? And for whom? Are you a producer, distributor, and seller, or a consumer? Or are you all of these things? What do you need to consume in order to live comfortably?
Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I am Kristen Welker at the end of an historically volatile week that included massive losses and gains on Wall Street. Historic tariffs and rollbacks, panic and jubilation in the markets, and growing concerns about the stability and reliability of the U.S. economy. Stocks finished the week on a positive note. The Dow rose by roughly 600 points. Since the president's so-called Liberation Day tariff announcement last week, markets are lower by about 5% across the board. It comes as the trade war between the U.S. and China escalated again, with Beijing now ratcheting up tariffs on U.S. goods to 125%, to levels it says make trade virtually unfeasible with the U.S. It comes the day after the White House clarified that its tariffs on Chinese imports have gone up to 145%. There are also red flags about the state of the economy coming from the U.S. bond market and confidence in the U.S. dollar. Today, consumer sentiment, a closely watched indicator of economic health because of how much the economy is driven by consumer spending, plummeted. It's currently lower than during the Great Recession, and its second lowest level since the survey by the University of Michigan began more than 70 years ago. Consumers' inflation expectations at their highest level since 1981. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt downplayed those numbers during today's White House press briefing, urging American consumers to trust in Trump.
Why is American consumer confidence so low?
Look, I think there's a great optimism in this economy, great optimism for the American people, a lot of reason for people to feel optimistic. The president is, as I just said, trying to renegotiate the global trade agenda that has ripped off the American people for far too long. As he said, this is going to be a period of transition. He wants consumers to trust in him, and they should trust in him. Trust in President Trump. He knows what he's doing. This is a proven economic formula.
With us again today, as he has been throughout this volatile week, is CNBC's senior economics reporter, Steve Leisman. Steve, thank you so much for starting us off on this Friday. We really appreciate it. Let's take stock of where we stand in terms of this trade war with China. Do you believe it's reached a breaking point, and what are the implications?
Yeah, I'm afraid that those freight cars you showed there at the top of the show are probably going to be empty, going either way right now. I think that, just think about it.
We cover this in all 3 of these videos here, which will be linked in the description. So by the workers striking, who are they fighting against? What are they fighting for? Please be wary of inflammatory media reports about the impact of this strike. Until you see that there is a deficiency of something you believe you need but cannot access because of the strike, ensure that that is in fact being caused by the ILA strike, because it is likely not affected by shipping that would be conducted in those particular ports. As long as there are truck drivers who are able to deliver across the country, people should be able to continue to receive the things that they normally receive from United States companies. If the majority of the commodities we are using are being delivered from out of the country, including refrigerated foods, that would be a bigger concern for us as individual families and consumers. Does that make sense to you? This is also important because it highlights privilege. And there are many people who have been encouraged into entrepreneurial pursuits who really are resellers of goods that have been produced by other people. And if they are resellers of products that are brought in from out of the country and are produced by governments who have oppressive or slave-like labor conditions, then that also makes them part of the problem. But I don't think people see it that way because they aren't directly impacted by the types of products they resell.
If you had a $10 million shipment on the water on the way here, all of a sudden that's going to cost you $14 million in addition. So those carts are empty right now. There is, except for the few things that are exempt from the tariffs. You get them up to these levels. In fact, you get them up about 40 or 50%, you essentially cut off trade. So that's where we're at right now. The only hope now for restoring this are negotiations between China and the United States.
Well, let's talk about some new economic data that we got today. Consumer sentiment, consumer confidence dropping by 11% since last month. Steve, why does this matter, and what do you make of that?
Well, it matters on two levels. The first level it matters on is when people, their sentiment is down, they're less likely to do things like buy, especially big ticket items. Those are the things that are really important for the economy and economic growth. But they get worried. They might put off car purchases. They might put off buying a washing machine or a dishwasher or something like that. And that's before there's even a price consideration, the idea that things will be higher in price. They're just not going to be in the mood to stretch out, not going to be in the mood to take credit on in order to buy those things. So that has a real economic impact. The other thing you mentioned was the inflation expectations. And as you said, back to 1981, with the 1 year. Now, there's also a 5-year inflation expectations. And I'm bringing this up because that's the one the Federal Reserve really cares about. And that you have to go back to 1991 to find a bigger one. And so the idea that people think inflation is going to be higher next year, it's a big deal, but not the biggest deal. The thing the Fed really cares about and they want to keep contained is what people think is going to happen 5 years from now, because that can really influence what they do. And that has spiked up in a kind of worrisome way.
Well, and of course, we're watching what the Fed does so incredibly closely. We're also watching the bond market. We know that the president was watching that quite closely this past week, particularly when he decided to announce that pause on tariffs across the board. Explain, Steve, why the bond market and what we saw there this week is so significant and what it could mean about the long-term economic forecast.
Okay, so for that, I'm going to give you a little lesson in trade. Here's what happens. We buy their stuff. They send us TVs and things like that, and we send them dollars. Those dollars come back in, among other ways, into our treasury market, and they buy our bonds. It helps finance our deficit. They might be, the Chinese and Japanese own a lot of mortgages. So these mortgages are packaged up into securities, and they're sold to, in part, they have about 15% of the mortgage market. So when they either get fewer dollars because we're buying less stuff, or they just feel unconfident or lack confidence in the American market, they could stop buying some of those treasuries. And whether or not they're really doing it, there's concern that they might do it. And so you have bond yields rising up near 450. What's unusual about this is when things get weird in the world, what do people do? They come scurrying to the safety of the United States. What do? They buy our dollar, they buy our bonds, they buy our stocks, because we're supposed to be the safest place in the world. The thing that has been concerning about the trade this week is that didn't happen. We call it in the business the flight to safety trade. And there was not a flight to safety. There was a bit of a running away from the safety of the United States. We don't know if this is a one-time reaction or is this part of a broader trend where the decline in trade, the concern, honestly, about the leadership in the United States and where they want to go and how they want to get there is causing a broader concern with the United States assets, once thought to be the most risk-free in the world, and now there's been, I would say, quite a bit of risk introduced into it.
Well, there have been so many twists and turns this week. Steve Liesman, thank you so much for helping us understand it all with your great analysis and reporting. Great to see you. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
As we're